Hey folks, have a look at this. This is the Tudor Black Bay in Midnight Blue. It was just released about a month ago as of this video. You're looking at it on a gray NATO strap. It also comes with, at least this one came with the bracelet, the metal bracelet, and also a navy strap as well came with it, but this is an aftermarket NATO strap. And I have to say, I'm really digging this watch so far. I actually like it better than a Rolex Submariner, believe it or not. The reason for that is the Submariner is just so popular and so ubiquitous, it's almost disgusting. You see somebody with a Submariner on, and a lot of people automatically assume that it's a fake because they're so often faked. Also, if you try to buy a Submariner, number one, they're really expensive, and number two, if you try to get a used one, like a vintage one, you don't know if the stuff is authentic inside. You know, a lot of the ones that you see like on eBay, for instance, are what they call Franken Rolexes, which means that they have pieces of other Rolex watches in them, but they're not actually all original. And so it's really hard to find a genuine, authentic, vintage Rolex Submariner. This Tudor Black Bay is made by Rolex. Tudor is a Rolex company, and they use Rolex cases and Rolex dials and hands and all that. So all the hardware is Rolex. The only difference is the interior movement is made by ETA or ETA, which I think is a perfectly good movement. A lot of purists don't like the Tudors because they don't use the in-house Rolex movements, which are better. And I would generally agree that the Rolex movements are better, but in some ways the ETA movements are better because if you think about it, they're a lot easier to repair by most watchmakers, whereas the Rolex ones, you have to have an authorized Rolex repair person or repair center do it for you. And so these are generally cheaper to repair. Also, lest you think that it's not really Rolex or whatever, consider that some Rolex models have actually used aftermarket non-in-house movements. In fact, the highly sought-after Rolex Daytona models didn't even use Rolex movements. They used either ETA/Valjoux movements, or later on they used Zenith movements. And those watches are highly sought after now, some of them going for over $100,000. So I wouldn't put too much faith in the fact that this watch, or any watch really, doesn't have an in-house Rolex movement. The ETA movement is perfectly good, and in fact it's quite reliable, quite accurate. And Rolex also does a little bit of tweaking on the movement themselves in terms of certifying it and testing it before actually putting it to use in their watches. Now this watch is based on an old Tudor Submariner that was popular. It's actually sort of a combination of the old Tudor Submariner from the 1950s all the way up into the 1970s. And so you can see that it has no crown guard here, which I really like. That's a really cool vintage look. And that was from the 50s. It's got the snowflake hour dial, or hour hand, and that was found more in the later ones, I think in the 60s and 70s. But originally the Tudor Submariner was a tool watch, and a lot of military used them. French military used them, and I think British military also used them, and also some American military as well used them. And so they're sort of a military submariner. Now, they're no longer calling this the Submariner, I guess for obvious reasons. They're calling it the Black Bay. But as you see, the pictures on your screen, you can kind of see what this watch is based on, the two watches that it's based on. And I think it's just very cool. I actually like the no crown guard look of this. It just gives it a real cool look, real classy and swanky, and I think this watch is really an instant classic. I like this one better than the red one. There's two versions of this watch, the current Tudor Black Bay, this one in midnight blue, and then the red one. The red one has faux vintaging on it. The hour markers are sort of a cream colored, and it's supposed to look like a vintage watch, and I'm just against that. I don't like any kind of watches that have faux vintaging on them. Really a cool watch in all regards. It's a very good price compared to like the Submariner. As of this video anyway, the retail price on this watch is $34.25, I believe. for what you get, you're getting basically a Rolex watch with a ETA movement for that price. And most other, Rolex branded watches start at about 6,000 or so and go way up from there. So again, I'm quite happy with this watch. Not only is it a good value for money, but it's just a really cool watch in its own right. I've always been a fan of vintage Submariners, whether they be Tudor or Rolex. It's just that they're so expensive right now, and as I mentioned earlier, they're really hard to source reliably. Really hard to get. Even if you find one on eBay or whatever, or even in a watch dealer, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, and oftentimes they don't have the box and papers, and you don't know what's inside, you don't know the history of it and stuff like that, so you don't necessarily know that you're getting 100% real Rolex. So this was a good way to get a new one with warranty and all that, with still the same very cool military sub tool watch look that I was after. So yeah, it's a little bit thicker than a Submariner and a little bit bigger. I think it's about 13 millimeters thick, but it's got a real good fit and finish, and I apologize, there is some fingerprinting on it right now. I probably should have wiped it a little bit clean before doing this video, but I just wanted to do this sort of impromptu video. This watch has white gold hour surrounds, so the surrounds between where the glow-in-the-dark luminescent material is white gold. Also, the dial is slightly domed. It might be hard to see in this video, but the dial itself is slightly domed up, which gives it a really cool look. And then, of course, the bezel is a navy blue as well. I think this watch is going to age really well. But the stem of the crown is also a navy blue as well, so it matches the bezel. It's sort of in there, but it's in the shadows in this video, so it might be a little hard to see. Also, if you look at the side of the crown here, you can kind of see the design there, right there, which is a really cool touch. It's got that sort of inlaid design there. Really great attention to detail. Oh, also another thing is the case edges are actually beveled, which is something that Rolex themselves has actually stopped doing in Rolex watches. They're not doing that anymore, so that's a nice touch and a little bit differentiation of the Tudor. So you've actually got bevels, on the edges of the case. Machine bevels, not hand bevels, but they're still beveled, which is really nice. Yeah, so Rolex, does a little bit of different things on the Tudors. They're not identical to the cases of Rolex watches, but they are made in the same factory and all that kind of stuff, and the same production as Rolex watches. And they use some of the same parts as well in terms of the hands and the dial, the markers and stuff like that on the dial and things like that. Underneath the 12 o'clock position, you have the vintage Tudor logo, which is like a rose insignia, and then it says Tudor Geneve. And then above the 6 o'clock position, you've got meters first listed, so it's 200 meters /660 feet. Then it says rotor self-winding. And why don't I go ahead and show you the box that it comes into. This is the box that it comes in, and it's got a slip-out box here. Okay, it says Tudor there, and then let me open this. Okay, so I've got the box open, and this is a really nice box. I would have to say, I think it's wood. Really nicely finished, very nicely done box. This comes with it as well as the steel bracelet. This is a cloth NATO-like strap for the watch. It's a navy color. And this, I believe, is woven by the same company that makes the robes for the Vatican. At least that's what I understand. So it's very high quality. It's not just your normal cheapy NATO strap or anything like that. And then also it comes on the steel bracelet. I've got the steel bracelet in the other room, but here's some pictures of what the watch looks like on a bracelet. I think it looks great on both a bracelet as well as on cloth NATO straps in different colors. Unlike the red one, I don't think the red one looks as good on steel bracelet because the red and cream colored dial is very warm colored, and the steel bracelet tends to be a more cool color, so it's almost like a mismatch there. Whereas I think this one, the blue one, definitely looks a lot better on a bracelet. Tudor recently has come back to America. I believe they left the American market in the 2000 maybe 2003 to 2005 or something like that. And they have recently come back in 2013. And they've really come back with some great releases. I actually like the new model of Tudor watches better than Rolex new models. What Tudor is doing is, I think, releasing some really cool pieces that are quite innovative. And, you know, the pieces in their heritage line really do, you know, harken back to heritage watches that I think people are pretty thirsty for these days, and would like, you know, definitely want to see on the market. And so in general, I think what Tudor is doing currently is more exciting than what Rolex is doing, which is interesting. Like I said, I like this watch even better than a Rolex Submariner. It's a very faithful representation of the old military sub watches that I was talking about earlier. And let me go ahead and put it on my wrist right now so you can see what it looks like. So here's the watch on my wrist, and the reason why I have the gray NATO strap on it right now is because that is very faithful to the original NATO strap. The actual British military specification for a NATO strap is a gray color. They don't specify any other color. So this is 100% faithful to a actual British military NATO strap that would be military issue. But, you know, I do like the navy strap that is included in the box with this, as well as the bracelet. I think it looks great either way. I also have other NATO straps that I wear with this, such as black, and it looks great with a sand color as well. But, you know, this watch really goes with almost any color, so you can even, if you want, make it brighter and put different brighter NATO straps on it and stuff like that. But that's primarily the reason why I'm doing this video with this color NATO strap, just because it is the original, you know, type NATO strap in the sort of military gray. So thanks for watching this video on the Tudor Heritage Black Bay in Midnight Blue. This watch just came out a couple of weeks ago as of this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them, and thanks for watching this video.